Today, I watched a case that happened at the end of the 19th century in the United States. It was about a wealthy old man who was a member of a wealthy family, and amongst the relatives, his amount of cash was the lowest. The inheritance for him was not much when he was younger, so he worked for his fortune. And his work ethic made him abusive of the people he was involved with, and he exploited his business partners often. So he made quite some enemies during his lifetime. He had a daughter, actually, he had two daughters, and one of those daughters was very close to him. And because this woman was quite close to her father, who was so focused on business, she did not focus much on her own interests, like getting married and all of that. She ended up helping her father out with the business. One day, the father was murdered, and the wife of the father also, in a very horrible way. Now, there were several suspects, including one of the business rivals of the father, who was defrauded by the father. But eventually, people pointed to this daughter as the suspect. There was a court case after a year, and she was pleaded not guilty. Why? There was not sufficient evidence that she actually committed a crime, and the police itself did not perform a good job during the investigation. So much of the so-called evidence was not admissible in the courthouse. And here's the thing. When the father passed away, or actually the father was murdered, she received an inheritance. Her sister also. She was quite close with her sister. But the woman became the target of mainstream media. Throughout the United States, in the media back then, she was portrayed as this cruel daughter that killed her father and the wife of the father. Even though she was released from all charges, they kept on condemning her. And in the hometown where she lived, she was avoided by everyone. She was ostracized by people. She decided to remain in that town and to enjoy the fortune that her father left her. But look at this. That sister of hers, with whom she was so close, it took only a few years before she left. There was a big fight between the two, and they never spoke to each other again. She became a loner in that house where she ended up dying of diseases. She spent decades in that house in loneliness. Now, why am I talking about this piece of history? It is because there is something off with this history. I'm not saying the history didn't happen. There's something about it that it is really remarkable about how worldly people think. Think about it, believers. This woman became a scapegoat. A wealthy man was killed and his wife. They were unable to find a perpetrator. She became the perpetrator. She was condemned even before there was a trial. Even before there was even evidence that she allegedly committed the crime. It was never proven she did it, and she always made plain that she didn't do it. Now, whether she did it or not doesn't matter. Look at this way. You inherited a house with a lot of money, but the place where the house is located, people don't want you over there. You have the right to be there. You grew up over there. It's your house. You've inherited it. But people don't want you over there. So you are the constant victim of psychic violence. If she did kill her father and that other woman, she would have reaped what she have sown. She would have reaped what she had sown, and well, she did harm, and harm came back. If she did not kill her father, and let's follow the evidence, and there's no actual evidence she actually did it, let's say she didn't kill her father, then she was just a plain victim of people's projections. Now, whether she did it or not, let's look at this way. If you're at a place where you are targeted with violence every day, why would you want to be there? In this case, she had a lot of money. She could have easily purchased another house somewhere else, selling that house over there and leave. And she could have lived a better life somewhere else. Why didn't she do it? She was so attached to that place. And that attachment became her doom. She became mentally ill and eventually physically ill, and she died of physical illness. She only turned 66 years old. She could have easily become 90 or 100 years old in full health, but she persisted to stay in that house. And here's the thing. If your father did not show that much interest in you, why did you kept on working hard to earn his approval even when you saw it went at your expense? This woman died without being married and without children, alone in a big house. What type of life is that? She had no contact with her relatives, and when she died, only few people attended the funeral. So nobody even cared that she was gone. And what for? Just to hold on to a house? Look, I'm not sure where this woman killed that man or not. But again, that's not what it's about. Why would you persist in a context that will not benefit you in the long run? If you're innocent, you didn't kill your father nor that other woman, and people keep on blaming you, that means that those people there are cowards. They don't want to deal with the fact that there's a perpetrator on the loose. So if the people in that town are cowards and they're projecting it onto you, what do? You have money, you have resources, use them, pick up your stuff and leave those people in their misery. They persist to be miserable. At least when you're gone, they can't blame it on you. Because they're miserable and they don't want to face it, just want someone to blame. When you're not there, they can't blame you. What did this woman do? She stayed there, she persists in there. Now look, there's a difference between fleeing, just running away, and removing yourself from harm. If you have your own house, where you're paying rent, where you're living, you're not going to allow people to project you out of your own house. Just because they're upset, now they blame you and you need to leave. No, that's not how it goes. But when you have options, and there are far better options out there for you, why would you hold on to a bad option just to prove a point? This woman proved a point. She did. And she proved a point at her own expense. And the people that she proved a point towards died. Nobody cares anymore who those people are. And she died, and most people don't even know who she is anymore. Was it worth it to prove that point? Obviously, it was not. And if she was guilty and she got another chance of starting a better life, why didn't she do it? If you really committed a horrible crime, something you can't take back, and now you have a chance, due to the failure of the system, to start over, why don't you start over? So whether she was guilty or not doesn't matter. Why did she hold on to an option that didn't add up? And let me tell you, believers, worldly people are like this. They will hold on to options that don't add up just to prove a point. There are some worldly people that are practical. Despite that they are delusional in many ways, there are some worldly people that are practical and they'll just leave. No matter how much they've invested, when they see that that investment will ruin them in the long run, they'll rather lose investment, they will rather lose all that money and all those years, all the time, than to be with something that will ruin them in the long run. And that's why I'm telling you, believers, we need to be flexible and practical. We should be flexible and practical with everything and everyone except Christ, because Christ is Lord. The moment you are affirming anything else besides of Christ, you're in idolatry. If you're affirming anything else besides Christ, you are in idolatry. We must be flexible and practical with everything and everyone except Christ. When you do that, you avoid being trapped in evil. Well, that's it for now. Keep on agreeing with Christ and be at peace.